fellow board members, thank you for being here. I'd like to go and get our citizens forum started today. I guess we'll start off with our basic introductions like we always do. I guess I'll get started with myself. My name is Anthony Stanball. I'm the co-chair here for the Citizens Forum. Then I guess we'll go around and last.
Okay, Jim Browning, Region M Water Planning Group in RERAC. Yes, I'm still a member of the regional part.
Melissa Gonzalez with the LRGDBC.
Velma Garcia, Elementary Engineering, representing Wilson.
Okay. And I guess I do see a note here that I was made sure to notify everyone that this meeting is being videotaped and will be posted on IWC's YouTube page. Frankie, could you help facilitate if there's any, I guess it's just time if there's any board members that are virtual that would like to introduce themselves?
Is there any board members online that would like to introduce themselves? Nope.
Next up, I want to see that Commissioner Hernandez is online with us. Without further ado, Commissioner.
Hello, everyone. I also have here Isela Canava. She's the woman that knows here. So when we talk about San Juan, she's been leading in the negotiations. So I look forward to the discussion, but also to the wonderful work that Juan Uribe has been doing in the region. You'll be pleasantly surprised at what he will be presenting. And of course, Liz Verdecchia will be talking about some of the work that they're doing in the region. And finally, we'll talk about the minute and the update on the San Juan. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner. I guess right off the bat, we have a pretty short and concise, as they say, agenda to go over today. For those that are joining us online, should you have any questions from our presenters, try to use that raise hand function and try to keep your mics muted so we don't get a bunch of echo or disruption. Okay, so I guess without further ado, floor is yours to talk about today. Field office activities.
Good afternoon. My name is Juan Uribe. I'm the regional manager of this field office or the Lower Grande field office. Wanted to spoke to me as my presentation is going to be over the 2024 Lower Grande field office operation and maintenance that our wonderful staff complemented this year. So the presentation is going to be a little bit different. Instead of doing a PowerPoint presentation, we're going to have a video. It should be short, about 6 or 7 minutes. But before that, I wanted to share some news. So on staffing, this field office is almost full staffed. We have 37 or 38. I'm missing a welder. So hopefully that announcement will go out soon and we'll fit it. On the equipment.
Juan, let me interrupt you there real quick. I think it's really important that once that solicitation for that position goes out, and just in fairness to Juan, he did have a fully staffed office. It was not until this individual recently retired. But if we could send that out to our Citizens Forum members so that if they know of people who would want to apply in the region, these are good federal jobs. We promise we won't poach your employees. But I take the fifth on that. Either way, once that comes out, we will make sure to share it with the group.
Thank you, Commissioner. And for equipment, this year we got a lot. We had 70 more John Deere tractors. We had 2 traffic message boards, 1 vector trailer, 1 motor grader, 2 forklifts, and 1 excavator. After we finalize the video, if you want, we get the Q&A.
The Lower Rio Grande Field Office 2024 accomplishment. Our field office mows approximately 12,000 acres per year. Desilting is also part of our responsibilities. We desilt approximately 15,000 cubic yards per year. 270 miles of levee is maintained by staff. Our office do the following: resurfacing, layout, process new caliche, slope repairs due to erosion, fill and repair levees to include ramps. "523 structures within IBWC floodway and levees are inspected yearly basis. These structures are maintained and repaired as following: replace sluice gate, weed eating around structures, paint structures, install identification poles. 10 floodgates are rehab each year. 1 at FM 107, 2 at FM 491, 2 at Business 83, 2 at Jackson Road, 1 at Benson Road, 1 at Alamo Road, and 1 at Hidalgo POE. The LRGFO also has a clearing program. These type of machines clear the area before the mowing team get there. The field office plans for hurricane season by having an internal flood exercise. Staff are trained on sandbagging, levee liner, structure operation, oil control, gator pump, gauge board exercise, confined space, stop logs installation. The dynamic duo of Captain Martinez and Captain Martinez provided top-notch emergency response training to the entire staff at the LRGFO. The field office collaborated with SSD, Captain Martinez, DPS, and local law enforcement to actively monitor unauthorized ATV events in the vicinity of the levees. Anzalduas and Redamal Dam are both under the jurisdiction of the LRGFO. Anzalduas is excited to announce that 2 gates have been rehabilitated and plans are underway to rehabilitate 2 additional gates. It's important to remember that meetings are also a regular part of our work. For example, we have the following regular meetings: weekly staff meetings, monthly TSILA meetings, headquarters, Senator Cornyn's office, Congressman Gonzalez's office, private contractors, local precincts, irrigation districts, cities, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Senator Cruz's office, irrigators, law enforcement, CBP, customs, and much more. This year, we have acquired the necessary tools to empower our field office in executing our daily tasks. The equipment includes a fleet of 7 John Deere tractors, 1 Volvo excavator, 1 Volvo soil compactor, 2 traffic message boards, 1 cat backhoe, 1 dump trailer, and 1 Vector trailer. We are thrilled to announce that our field office, in collaboration with HQ's training staff, has successfully streamlined operations by removing heavy equipment and cutting down on inventory. This strategic initiative not only enhances efficiency, but also paves the way for greater productivity. In anticipation of future tasks, the LRGFO remains ready and willing to support other field offices in addition to our daily responsibilities. Each year, a series of tasks are undertaken for both stakeholders and the Rio Grande Valley community, aimed at ensuring the preparation for hurricane season, mitigating high flows to prevent flooding, maximizing organizational effectiveness through innovative technology, effective management, and ultimately, safeguarding lives through the diligent efforts of our dedicated staff. These annual activities are successfully completed within the seasonal schedule.
Can we share that? Are you gonna share that with the public?
Yes.
There's a couple of things that I want to highlight in the video that may not have been as obvious, and I think it really is a credit to the team down there in South Texas. They did talk a little bit about the value added they bring to our other offices. One of them is in the Upper Rio Grande with some sediment removal as well as other activities, and down in the California area as well, when we had a lot of sediment and trash that built up in the Tijuana River. Part of it is our jurisdiction. And why do I like to highlight that? And I think it's important is because when we are able to demonstrate how agile we are as a federal agency, it really gives us a lot of credibility. The other thing that I wanted to highlight was the equipment. When I started at the IBWC and I visited, the first thing I did was go visit all the field offices. And I mean, they looked like junkyards, and staff, that was one of the things that staff kept bringing up. We need equipment. You know, they're telling us we don't have money for tires. They're telling us that that we don't have money for gasoline. They were using their own funds to fix toilets in the building. It was very, very disheartening to see that. So we created this robust equipment replacement program. And right now in 3 years, we've purchased almost 100 pieces of heavy equipment for all of our offices so that we can continue doing our mission. We are about, it's a 5-year program. And so we're about halfway through replacing all of this equipment, and that's going to be able to make us better at our jobs. So I know Juan only talked about some of the pieces of equipment that they have, but they've really seen the value added with it. And with regards to the staffing, when I started at the IBWC, there was a 28% vacancy rate. And these are positions that were not filled. And so now to see that that Lower Rio Grande up until about a month ago was completely staffed is really heartwarming, because again, that's how we're able to provide the services that we need to get done on flood protection, as well as flood management and maintaining our dams in the region. I don't know, Isela, is there anything that I missed?
No, I think you covered it all.
So let's give them an applause.
All right, a little bit ahead schedule, but I guess we can move on to our next speaker, which is Preston Castellon. To join us.
I don't, just look at me now.
I'll wink you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Preston Castillo. I am a biologist representing the Finance Companies AGEISS. And this presentation is about the Year 3 vegetative monitoring being done on the Arroyo Colorado within the Lower Rio Grande flood control project. And this is the presentation is going to be about. Here's what we're doing using these 1 meter squared plots.
And Preston, can you speak up? Because if I can't hear you, that means the others on the line cannot hear you either.
We left these plots open to move around woody vegetation like trees. Next. So the Arroyo Colorado floodway is a component of the Lower Rio Grande Flood Control Project. The U.S. International Boundary and Water Commission is authorized to construct, operate, and maintain any project or works constructed by the United States on the Lower Rio Grande Flood Control Project. It is composed of 270 miles of levee and floodways, as well as the Arroyo Colorado floodway, which extends from the Anzalduas Dam past Benitez, and then east past Brownsville into the Gulf of Mexico. The interior floodway consists of a main floodway going more north of the valley, and then splits down to the Arroyo Colorado, which splits into the lower valley through the city of Mercedes. The Arroyo Colorado floodway has a design capacity of 21,000 cubic feet per second of flow, and these flood flows diverted from the Rio Grande east to the Lagoon Madre. To maintain the design capacity, reduce erosion potential, and stabilize the stream banks, as well as manage wildlife habitat and control the invasive species, the U.S. International Boundary and Water Commission controls the woody vegetation within the channel and its banks. And the monitoring was done right here throughout Harlingen and San Benito in the middle of the Rio Colorado. Started off the project in 2021 and early 2022. The International Boundary Water Commission removed 70 acres of woody vegetation from a 50-foot buffer along the Rio Colorado floodway, except in areas where there was a high amount of slope. A lot of the woody vegetation here were invasive species, mainly native to China and Africa, that did not stabilize the banks and did not reduce erosion. Following the woody vegetative removal, vegetation management occurred through contracting that revegetated these 70 acres along the Rio Colorado using native grass, seeding out grasses, forbs, flowering plant species, and other woody species. Through the past 3 years, plot monitoring was contracted and reporting services were done to support these management activities. The purpose of the monitoring was to determine if these plantings were self-sustaining, to provide feedback to this program, as well as to determine if there was compliance with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife vegetation management plans. So here were the plots. 60 plots in total were monitored for this project, starting in public areas in Harlingen with McKelvey Park, and then the former McCulloch Park, Huron Nature Preserve, the Treasure Hills Golf Club, the Harlingen Landfill, the Harlingen Water District, the San Benito Wetlands, Santos Fishing Spot, and a Navigation District. Visual estimates were found using these 1 meter squared plots to find abundance of native and non-native species, as well if the species were part of the planted ones planted years prior. A general site assessment was also determined to find the abundance of species outside of these plots, usually 2 meters out the perimeter. So here is the results of the first year. About 53.3% native species were observed on the Rio Colorado. This represents species that were growing on their own that were native. Blue represents non-native species. And then the green and purple represent species that were part of the project, the planting, that were either planted in green or seeded out in purple. The year after, the amount of invasive species increased to 39.9%, whereas the other percentages stayed about the same. And then this year, only about 43 of the 60 plots could have been surveyed due to sporadic floods during the fall, during monitoring, as well as the landfill segments being inaccessible due to soil work being done there. There's 98.8% cover throughout the plots. The remaining 1.2% was mainly leaf litter and bare ground. The average native species, the red parts of the pie chart, was about 52.9%. And there was about 12.4% of the planted species, the green areas in the pie chart. And there were no native herbaceous seed mix species documented within the plots. So the purple parts of the pie chart. So none of those were observed. However, they were observed outside the perimeter of the plots of the purple areas. So results. The abundance of woody species at the sites were about 58% across the year 3, with common reed being the most common observed woody species. The more woody species, the better stabilization of the banks and more erosion control. There was a high amounts of volunteer native species, those not planted but grew on their own there, with the most common being sea oxeye, more Gulf Coast vegetative species, and common reed. So the project did not meet the final success criteria for the past 3 years on this project. As I said before, the purple areas on the pie charts were 0% for this year, as there are no herbaceous species observed within the plots this year. However, they were observed outside. There were more non-native species observed this year than the previous years. Native herbaceous species stayed about the same. Planted species abundance did increase this year to 12.4%. So in comparison, for year one, the most common seed mix of planted species was coastal germander and Maximilian sunflower. The second year, the most common species that were planted or seeded out were hooded windmill grass and sprawling lippia. And then for this year, the most common planted species were Rio Grande dewberry and sprawling lippia. Here is an example from Hugh Ramsey Nature Preserve. So as you all can see on the creek side, there's more woody species and the planted species growing. And then past the corridor, mainly the 50 feet, it's all invasive grasses. Look at the skinny grass right here. So, in conclusion, the primary goals of removing the woody vegetation in the first place, mainly invasive vegetation, was to stabilize the channel banks and maintain flood conveyance, as well as to provide vegetative cover for wildlife habitats in compliance with U.S. Fish and Wildlife consultations. While the project did not meet the year 1 through year 3 success criteria, the vegetation that is present along the banks does help stabilize channel banks, the native species of woody vegetation currently living. Furthermore, common reed is the most abundant species. Does provide some vegetative cover and travel for wildlife, but of a lower value expected from other vegetative species such as ashes and hackberries. Conclusions. Despite high vegetative cover, the International Boundary Water Commission may consider additional seeding and or planting in order to increase the native cover. And for best results, planting may be done between late summer, early fall from August 20th to September 30th. And then one of the main reasons for these results for this year was also because monitoring was done later in the fall instead of the summer growing season, which limited the observations of other species that may have lost their seed head in the fall. Also made that site prep prior to seeding was not sufficient to ensure the seed soil contact. For example, tilling of the soil might have been done to ensure scarification and more germination. And also an overbearing factors, of course, drought conditions throughout the valley throughout the past several years. Recommendations is to conduct monthly monitoring immediately following additional revegetation efforts to monitor the seed sprouting and the survival of the installed species. And of course, more herbicide treatments using herbicides with glyphosate throughout these areas to ensure more native species survival compared to invasive. An example of that was actually observed at Hugh Ramsey Nature Park in Harlingen and McKelvey Park in Harlingen, where these public areas had public management done, more vegetation management done, since these are public parks with public workers working on. And these monitoring reports can be found on the Boundary Water Commission website in this link. That is it.
You have any questions?
I have a question. Now you can make water rights on the waste program basic. Were any water rights allocated to Arroyo Colorado?
Yes.
Anyway.
I don't know the number or the percentage, but there are water rights in that coastal basin that divert from, that can divert from.
I know the Rainbow Drain or process party claimed the water rights in the county successfully litigated.
I'm thinking of one that I can recall from my time over there. And it was, I think it was some sort of fish farm. But that was closer to Arroyo City, but yeah, there's some that are on that.
Most people did to the chief. So,
Yeah.
Is the project over or is it a continuation? Are y'all gonna, is it gonna continue?
Yes, people can,
You can continue?
depends on if more effort can be done.
This is all new to me, so this is very interesting. And you mentioned a couple of times how you didn't meet your target criteria, but the goal of increasing stabilization of the banks was met, right? So there's.
So there was a set goal at the beginning,
Okay,
of like only about like 20% invasive species should be seen.
okay,
But it was in the 40s this year. But still, there is still a lot of stabilization because of the woody. You should just grow them.
Yeah.
The data ones, yes.
that's good. Well, mixed bag, but stabilization is good. Thank you.
Any others?
There's a working group with the Texas Mass and Naturalists. Are you working with them together or are you contacting them?
Not naturalists?
Yeah, what they do,
That would actually be a great idea to incorporate slopes and naturalists studying at this part.
yeah, we meet at Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. Every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. So there are people who lead the team and people who work and they.
Because the revegetation efforts are usually environmental contracts, but in naturalist efforts, this would help a lot too.
Do you see any online by chance? Any hands or? See.
Nope.
Also.
Wait.
We have one.
Let me know if you can see it there. It's Sarah. It should be Sarah McCartney.
Actually, all three. There's a list of species of perennials, biennials, and just hydrogenation. There's two lists that were of species that were seeded out and planted out there. That includes perennials, biennials. Yes.
Is this on the website you provided? I think it was on WC.
One of the reports should have those lists. Yes. Especially the past yearly reports.
Awesome. That's it.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, moving right along, I guess,
Okay, but Mr. Chair, Anthony, can I say something?
Commissioner, please.
Okay, so before Delbert begins his presentation, I do want to highlight that Juan put together a fact sheet on Amistad Dam. And I know he's going to talk a little bit about it. Delbert, did we end up putting slides on Amistad Dam in there?
Yes, ma'am.
A few of them? Okay, so I'll wait for you to get to that point. But I'll let you go on ahead and start. But I just want to make sure, Juan, that that fact sheet is distributed to the attendees, so that when we talk about Amistad Dam, they have that available, if you don't mind, please. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Commissioner, I added a slide that there are new fact sheets available, but that's all the slides says.
Okay, and also when you get to that slide, I'll talk a little bit about what's on there. Okay,
Perfect. That'll work.
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hello, everybody. A lot of you I know. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Delbert Humberson. I'm one of the hydrologists in the Water Accounting Division. And I'm here to talk to you about some pretty exciting things that have been happening recently. Namely, the signing of Minute 331 and also the use of Rio San Water by the United States. But before we get into that, I think it's important to set some context. Most of us in this room are familiar with the status of our storage in the international reservoirs. It's low. Most of you are familiar with the status of deliveries coming from Mexico. It's low. But I think it's important to discuss how low, just to set the stage for what we're doing now. So here on this chart, You can see it way in the back of the room. We're looking at percent of total capacity. That's capacity in Falcon and Amistad for each country, going back to 1996. On the right side of the x-axis is present day. The blue line is United States, the red line is Mexico. And for me, the thing that really jumps out is you look at the right side of that graph, there aren't many parts of that blue line that are lower. Most of you are aware that in June of this year, we set a record low storage in Falcon and Amistad for the United States since the initial filling of the reservoirs. Right? What's that translate to? These are numbers as of November 23rd. I know our accounting, the weekly accounting just finished. I think they reached the conclusion today. We're trying to get on the web. So right now it's stuck on November 23rd. And we're looking at 684,000 acre feet combined storage. In Amistad, that's 26.6%, about 500,000 acre feet. And in Falcon, it's about 202,000 acre feet at only 13% of our US capacity. Looking at that graph, the last time we had full reservoirs, the 100% line was 2010, Hurricane Alex. What puts it in perspective for me is I had a son born that year. He's made it to high school without us having full reservoirs again. That tells the story, right? Also, it's important to point out Mexico's line is even lower. They're at 12.4% of their total capacity. They have about a year's worth of municipal supply. So they're going through some things too. Yes, sir.
I know we had the record low for lowest, but I tried to look back, and I think we're at a record low for December 5th of any year. Is that right?
I haven't actually looked at a month-by-month comparison, but I trust you. And that wouldn't surprise me, considering how low this is here.
We're at a record low. Get the record low, that was lowest, but for this stage of the
Right.
year, we're lowest.
I mean, that's consistent with what we see on the graph here. There's really is no other region this low, back to 96. Yeah. That's a good observation. What's the status of deliveries? Who here has not seen this graph before? I'm just kidding. All right, good. Then I have a reason to talk it through. I'm sorry. On the x-axis, we have cycle year. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the treaty, Mexico's delivery obligation is defined in 5-year cycles at an average of 350,000 acre feet a year. That's a total of 1.75 million acre feet at the end of that 5 years. What we're looking at here on the y-axis is accumulated deliveries per 5-year cycle. Each of those lines is a different 5-year cycle. The red dashed line represents the average rate Mexico would have to give us our water to meet their minimum obligation of 1.75 million acre feet at the end of that 5 years. What stands out here, the take-home story here is going back, this goes back to 1992. When we go our full 5 years, we're not getting that minimum delivery obligation off our 1/3 share of the 6 named tributaries. That's the 1/3 share defined by the 1944 treaty. Right? Where are we now? Well, this black line is the current cycle. We're already in year 5. Received a little over a year's worth of water. I know I'm preaching to the choir to most of you. Low. It's low. Now, what I don't want to convey, it's important to note that Mexico has delivered that water they owe us. It's not shown on this graph, but through a series of actions, reservoir transfers or enactment of Minute 234. Minute 234, and this is important as we move forward for the rest of this presentation, is a tool that was signed in 1969. And it lets the United States, and it only lets us do it after 5-year cycle ends in debt. We need a whole 5-year cycle to go by to end in debt. When it does, it lets the United States take water from Mexico's 2/3 share or through direct reservoir transfer. But we gotta wait for that first 5 years to go by. What's that mean? It means as we've gone through, we keep getting these little crises at the end of the 5-year cycle because we don't have the water until we start taking these measures that we cannot take more proactive, right? Bottom line, it ain't working. Status quo is not working. And if you're satisfied with status quo, we're not making progress. We need a change. We need a change. Enter Minute 331. Signed November 7th after 18 months of negotiations. Its history goes back all the way to Minute 325. Which was signed in 2020. That minute closed the 2020 cycle. Also established the policy and hydrology work groups. More on that in the next slide. But more importantly, it said that the commission will find a new minute, will sign a new minute. That will increase the predictability and reliability of Rio Grande water deliveries to users in both countries. And that's what minute 331 did. And to negotiate it, we had representatives from IBWC United States section, IBWC Mexican section, Canagua, as well as the state of Texas. There are a lot of people involved in this. There are a lot of long hours, a lot of negotiating that happened. So what did it do for us? How are we breaking status quo? Well, the first thing I want to go over, you can really look, if you look at the minute online and the provisions it provides, there are really two sections. The first section are provisions that don't expire, and they continue the commission's support for the policy work group and the hydrology work group. Why is that important? Well, the policy work group represents for the first time a structured framework for policy discussions throughout the entire 5-year cycle so far. And who's on that policy work group? Well, obviously IBWC, Canagua, TCQ, Texas State Department. We've had representatives from the governor's office. And it provides a venue where they can talk to each other and discuss concerns. And I can tell you, having sat in some of those meetings, they get pretty frank, those discussions. And it's had a big influence on how we negotiated minute 331. We have all those parties and our stakeholders at the table. And the policy work group, minute 331 establishes or continues our support for that policy work going forward. Now, the hydrology work group, you've seen me represent them, I'm on that. And our role is really information exchange between the countries, as well as building the science. You've seen me present a little bit on the model for a few years. This has been a many-year, multi-year undertaking. We're really close to expect to have the binational model as of next year. We've had a lot of progress this year as far as scenarios created for both countries in it. I won't get too deep into the model, but just know that science has happened. More recently, what you've seen is our presentations on inflow analysis. That's also what the hydrology work group is doing. Why are we doing? Why are we studying inflows? Why are we looking at consumptive uses and how they change over time? Because we need to understand the problem. You saw that graph. Since 1992, it ain't working. We're trying to break status quo. So we're continuing that support to build that science and make decisions. Now, there's two new groups established in minute 331. One is the projects work group. This one's pretty exciting. This job is going to be identify projects to find new water sources or water conservation sources. As Commissioner Nier likes to say, we want to grow the pie. It ain't working right now. We got to do something different. It also establishes the environmental work group. Environmental work group will be looking at environmental issues along the international reach of the Rio Grande. Of course, they will do so in considerations to our existing operational policies and limitations in water supply. But I do know from friends of mine on that group, one of the things they're interested in is groundwater surface water interaction and how that affects efficiency of deliveries coming down the United States. So it's just another piece of the puzzle that we're going to look at. Also, minute 331 continues our support for the Lower Rio Grande Water Quality Initiative. This is a big project involving TCQ and IBWC, and it's a big picture salinity study. How big is this problem we're having in Lower Rio Grande salinity? It's a big mass balance, and we're trying to figure out how big is it and where is it coming from. And so we're continuing that study as well. Now, these things are big, complicated things. Those of you who see me talk about the model, I've been talking about it for a few years. That doesn't help you today. All right. You're more interested in what's going to help you today right now. Well, in coming up with minute 331, representatives from both countries, state and federal, knew we needed tools. We needed new tools to get us water now. So we have not committed to these tools permanently. The tools I'm about to go over now are on sort of a 5-year pilot project, if you will. And if we decide we like these tools, we can negotiate and extend them. So I want to go through these tools. The first one is that now the minute provides some legal justification for Mexico to deliver to us excess waters they have stored on the 6 name trades on their reservoirs. All right. The second one is that they're going to consider allocating to us as a user now, or they have the potential to, in order to avoid deficiencies or maybe reduce one that already exists. Now, I'm saying they'll consider it. It's not forced, but this is where the policy work group comes into play. We've established over the last 5 years a forum to discuss and make things happen. And so that's what the policy work control is gonna be. They're gonna discuss. Is this the time to use this or not? Right? Now, more exciting to me. I already talked to you about minute 234. When can we use it? Who's paying attention? Only after a cycle ends in debt, right? Well, what if we can be proactive with minute 234? What if we don't have to wait 5 years to take part of Mexico's 2/3 share? We could take it at any time. That's another tool we got now. As we go into this last year, the cycle, it's pretty exciting when it's going to be at our disposal. Also, reservoir transfers. We don't have to wait 5 years to do that either. We can do it anytime, thanks to minute 331. So again, this is where policy work group comes into play to discuss and make these offers and decide if it's beneficial to both countries. Nothing I'm describing today can be forced on one country by the other. Both countries have to be in agreement that is in both our interests, right? Moving forward, use the Rio San Juan. I know sometimes it's. I'll wait to see if it's gonna make any faces at me when I proceed. Everyone smile, okay. Use the Rio San Water by the United States. In accordance with Article 9E of the 44th Treaty, right, which states that one country may use excess flows from another country's water if they say it's okay. So again, this isn't something that Mexico can force upon us. We have to be interested in taking, right? Now, I already mentioned that last bullet point about them expiring 5 minutes. Why did I end on San Juan? Because that's what's happening right now as you speak. Why do we care? Well, if you look at this graph, which you can't see way in the back of the room, but I'll explain it to you. This is a slide of all the storage, the current percent capacity in Mexico's reservoirs. This is a map. Here's Big Bend. Here's the Rio Conchos. All those reservoirs there. If you add up the total volume divided by the total capacity, as of December 2nd, they're at 20%. That's it. There's no water there right now. Now you can say, well, there was water there 2 years ago, and you'd be right. But we're here now, and right now there's no water. We can go look at the middle Rio Grande. They're at 25.8%. The only place where you're gonna find excess water is on the Rio San Juan. Those reservoirs, El Puchillo is at 105%. Marty Gomez is at 121%. So y'all want water, where are we gonna get it? Right? Yes, sir.
I'm going. I had a question at the end.
Okay. So Mexico made us an offer. They originally offered, back in October, 150 million cubic meters off the Rio San Juan. As of yesterday, they've increased that offer to 200 million cubic meters, or sorry, 250 million cubic meters. They added another 100. What is that in acre feet? It's 203,000 acre feet. Now, it's not forever. We have to use it by September 2025. Do we have to use all of it? No, it is up to us how much we want to use. It is up to you guys, the stakeholders, how much we can use. Now, the offer also is they will transfer to us at Anza Lewis Dam. And in exchange, we will give them 5-year cycle credit. But we will not give them credit at a 1-to-1 ratio. There is understanding that there are transit losses as the water moves downstream onto Lewis. They will get credit for 95% of what they give us. We're getting better than a 1-to-1 ratio. So, oh, I didn't update that number for the 250 million, but out of 150 million cubic meters, you'll get 142.5 million cubic meters of credit. That's good. So before we took this offer, we needed to put some rails on this baby. All right, we had to get some operational guidelines in place. This is a little different than how we've done things in the past. We want to make sure everybody's on the same page. We don't want any confusion on this at all moving forward. So we developed these operational guidelines in coordination with TCEQ and with our counterparts in Mexico. It's been fast and furious for the last few weeks, making sure that this was in place for you guys to get your water. What's it do? Well, I already mentioned, it improves operations by putting us on the same page. One of the things it stipulates is that the United States, they're going to analyze the behavior of the system downstream on Lewis Dam. We want to make sure that that 5% loss rate, that 95% credit we're giving them, is operating in our benefit. And so we will analyze the system and make sure that we're good with that. And if not, nothing is locked in stone. This is a flexible agreement. It's a living document. And we'll renegotiate if both countries decide we need to. Now, we can cease deliveries at any time. Of course, we gotta go 7 days leave, because once they release that water, it's making its way down the channel. Once we order it, it's done, right? We gotta take it. But we can cease. At some point, if you guys decide it's not worth it, United States decides it's not worth it, okay, we'll pass on it. The first order for 10 CMS was submitted last Wednesday. It was submitted last Wednesday to be transferred yesterday. So it is happening as we speak. What I said earlier, but right here, right now, not an exaggeration, it's happening right here, right now. There's any questions on those operations? Yes, ma'am.
So did I hear you correctly saying that Mexico has agreed for that Rio San Juan water transfer to happen behind the dam?
Right, so what happens is Rio San Juan water comes in and hits the Mesa de Rio Grande, it travels down. When it hits onto the dam, that's where the transfer happens. And the way we structure it is TCQ communicates with their stakeholders and gets orders collected, and they submit an order. And then Mexico guarantees that order will be there for us to take on that day.
But the Rio San Juan actually outlets just north of Rio Grande City, which is downstream of the dam. So we finally worked out.
Alonso Lewis is downstream of Rio Grande City.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Oops, I hit someone's microphone.
I'm sorry, I was getting Alonso Lewis confused on my side. So do we still have that issue with the accounting with TCQ?
What they're doing internally with their farmers, that's a question for TCQ. I can't really speak on it. So how did we get here? Just some actions led by IBWC, and I do need to, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our counterparts in Mexico. Like I said, we've been putting in some long hours for the last few weeks, getting this all together. That includes our partners in Mexico, that also includes our partners in Texas. We've been busting butt to get here. What have we done? Well, we drafted those operational guidelines and had to make sure it's in the interest of both countries. There was a lot of back and forth on that. We've coordinated the negotiations to set Mexico's offer. We've developed the submission forms to make sure it met the needs of Mexico and United States stakeholders and put us all on the same path. We've developed a tool to analyze behavior that I talked about we're gonna do. We built a tool to analyze behavior downstream once those dams, just to make sure it's interesting or it's operating in our interest. Well, I can't see the bottom of it. I got it, okay. Moving forward from this day out, and it's already happening, we are coordinating daily meetings as necessary with the river operators. I was in one just before I came here, which is why someone told me it's technically closed when I walked through the door. So I was on a meeting there with the TCQ water master, the Nagua, and the Mexican section. And the whole idea there is to make sure we're all on the same page. Are we getting our water? What are the potential operational issues? Let's discuss it now so we can head it off before it's a problem in either future accounting or causes confusion and time respect credit. So we're leading that effort. I already mentioned that we're gonna analyze system behavior, but also in development right now. I'm just curious if anyone here gets online and uses our water data portal for anything. All right, so you may have seen a lot of dashboards, and if you've been going to it over the years, so the dashboards have been increasing, and that's thanks to my colleague and friend Adrian Cortez, who you guys have seen down here presenting. He's also in the process of building dashboards to support on-the-door operation. So that hopefully keeps us all on the same page and makes things a little more transparent for all the people involved. So kind of cap this all off, what are the benefits of using Rio San Juan water? Luckily, no one has thrown anything at me, I mentioned it. But believe it or not, there are benefits. Water used downstream, right? Water that we get on Lewis is water we get to keep in fact. That's a win. It's wet water. It's wet water right here, right now. We can use it right now. We're using it right now. Right? We are giving credit for water that we're pretty much going to use. If we gave credit for that water before it, say we gave credit as it came down Arroyo Las Vacas, Rio San Diego, Rio San Rodrigo, right? Rio Conchos. We gave credit where it hits the confluence of the Rio Grande. And as it makes its way down to Lewis, there's transit losses. We gave credit for water lost in transit. I just did some quick math for this meeting. From Falcon to Lewis alone, that loss is 1 to 5% in evaporative losses, depending on time of year. We're not giving credit for that anymore. We're giving credit for water we're going to use downstream. And I can't say this enough, we can stop our orders whenever we want. We are not locked into this. We found the water. We have the offer. Really, it's up to our stakeholders if we continue using it. And here's that slide, Commissioner Net, about the updated Almost fact sheet now available. But before we transition to that, we covered a lot. I think it's pretty exciting stuff. I'm really proud of the work the team has done. Has been led by our leadership with Commissioner Net, Principal Engineer Canava, and Samantha who works with me on this stuff. Frank Martinez has been involved in a lot of these meetings. A lot of people in this room have been involved in this discussion. So I don't know if there are any questions on the stuff I just presented on. Yes, sir.
This was simple. Google search, I got an AI overview. These 1944 Colorado River Treaty, also known as the Water Treaty for the Utilization of Waters for the Colorado and Tijuana Rivers and of the Rio Grande, was signed on February 3rd, 1944. So initially it was one water treaty governing the water of both rivers, the Colorado and the Rio Grande.
Still is.
What minute separated those?
There's two different clauses in the treaty. So there's a whole separate clause that dictates how Colorado's. And there's a whole other clause that dictates how Rio Grande.
Okay, but they all originated under the same treaty.
So what's the question?
The question is, why are we not using the original treaty to use both rivers? Because they rely on us for water from the Colorado.
I think what you're
Just
asking
as
is,
much as we rely on them for water from the Rio Grande.
why aren't we holding back Colorado
That's
in
exactly.
exchange for Rio Grande? That's a big, complicated political answer, and I have Commissioner Enet on the line. I don't know if you wanted to weigh in on it. Just because I get more Rio Grande.
so-
I'm just familiar with that landscape.
Yes, this is a question we've gotten a lot, and one of the things that in these, from a perspective of practice, these rivers have always been kept separated, but also from the perspective of the Colorado River, that involves 7 states, and the 7 states right now want to. We would have to pursue agreements with the 7 states to do that. It's not within the purview of the federal government to withhold one to the other for exchange of the other. The other thing is that we have also discussed that with Mexico, and there could be unintended consequences with regards to that. One is that Mexico has says, well, if there's an opportunity to pay Rio Grande water with Colorado River, then we would consider the debt paid. And we don't want to go down that road because the 7 states may be happy with keeping water for them, but that is not going to solve Texas's crisis. I understand that what we want to do is put leverage on Mexico. And I feel that I've been in DC this whole week briefing Senator Cruz, Senator Cornyn, Monica de la Cruz, Vicente Gonzalez, Tony Gonzalez, and Henry Cuellar. And what I'm definitely getting direction on is that there is, the new administration is going to have a policy direction they feel that's going to want to use more leverage options. So given that, I would look forward to seeing what those leverage option opportunities are, because I don't think the Colorado River is a smart one because of that, because in theory, Mexico can say, okay, I give you your water in Colorado, we're done. And so again, I mean, those are discussions that I look forward to having with the new administration.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Commissioner pointed out something I thought is pretty significant in measuring the inflows from the Devils and Pecos River, and it's significant there. So maybe we have another tree we should barking up on, because Edwards Aquifer is what else turns into the Devils River, and they give all those permits for San Antonio and everybody else. And it would be interesting to see the diminished flow and the impact on that. And maybe we ought to be up there talking to TCEQ at the same time we're talking to Mexico.
I know that's that type of topic that the environmental work group, a lot of the environmental work group, it's just a lot of people in the Rio Grande Joint Venture Environmentalists, and that's one of the things they've been looking at.
Environmental flow, but we haven't done it on the scale of farming and
Yes.
peninsula.
Yeah. So you're suggesting a groundwater treaty? Just suggesting.
Well, you know, on the Gulf Coast aquifer, they keep tracking in the groundwater management district, and unfortunately, we're not part of that groundwater management district. We're part of the Gulf Coast one, and so we don't have any say in that. And so maybe that's what we ought to do, is because, you know, even when the water rights were granted, a lot of that water didn't come from Mexico. But obviously, 350, when you got a demand over 1 million acre feet a year, 350 wasn't going to solve the problem anyways.
Are you familiar with the Transboundary Aquifer Assessment Program?
No.
AGEISS involvement? Okay, so unfortunately, Edward Stringy isn't part of that initial study. But it's an effort by both countries, and when I used to work for USGS, I was one of the project leads for it. We're looking at groundwater characteristics for binational aquifers. So the 4 that are in there, it's a couple in Arizona, Santa Cruz, and I forget the other one in El Paso. It's White Bubble.
I looked up information, I saw there's activity in those.
Yeah. I know, I don't speak necessarily, I don't represent the commission's official opinion here, but my personal opinion as a scientist is that's pretty cool work, and it'd be neat to see that expanded further. And I know Texas A&M has been doing some stuff on Edward Stringy binational work.
You have an online question.
Let me
from-
add, let me add something to what was just said. Like I mentioned, I was up in DC, and one of the, many of you have seen us and present the information that Delbert and Adrian put together with regards to the reduction of inflows coming into the river. And one of the things we've been very, very clear on is that we don't know what's happening upstream. Is it drought? Is it, and this is happening on the Colorado River. Is it increased temperatures that are warming soil, so you have more of the water going into the ground? Or is it longer or shorter winters, so you have more vegetation that's growing? And I'll give you an example. The Colorado River has a lot of science on this, and when they have gotten 90% of average snowpack, they have gotten 30% of the expected runoff. In another year, 60% of the expected runoff. So there may be similar precipitation, amount of precipitation going on in the region, yet we don't know why it's not flowing to the river. And so I had this discussion when I was in DC with some of the members of Congress, and one of the things they asked, well, who can look at this? And one of the things that came to mind to me at that moment was that maybe this is something that the Army Corps of Engineers can look more closely to determine what is happening to the basin as a whole. You know, the information that we have just from our gauging stations have shown that since the 80s, about 600,000 acre feet of water has been lost, is no longer, well, I don't know if it's been lost because I don't think water gets lost, but it's not reaching the river. And so maybe that could be San Antonio's Edwards Aquifer. I don't know. But even so, that could be something that you as a group can advocate for and ask for from your federal delegation in order to be able to possibly secure funds for that. But I think that's really needed, because you can't manage what you don't understand.
Yeah. Because it's 2/3 of the water. We've been making a lot of noise about less. Yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah, the takeaway message there is, you know, we haven't analyzed causality, but it illustrates the need for more science to understand it, right?
I had a question, Doug.
Yes.
Has IWC, I guess, defined Ministry 3 talks about a beneficial use? Has there been actually an official definition of that from IWC?
No, so I know Texas has their own legal definition for it, but the way the operational guidelines are designed, there's not an explicit definition, but the idea is it's water that we actually put to use, right? Okay. And that's where that loss rate comes to play, at 95% credit, but not exactly a real explicit definition like you find in Texas.
Yeah. How about
Right. And we have, and just to add, and we have that process in place where we'll, within the US, we'll go back and look at the loss rate to actually make sure that 5% is working, right? So we have those guardrails in there, and if we find that if it's not working, it's something that we can open up discussions about. So, but we don't have a specific definition for beneficial use, but the operational guidelines are intended for us to make sure this water is put to the benefit of the US. Okay, Commissioner is asking me, Commissioners, Go ahead. After Delbert, I don't know if you want to add to that, but then I do want to talk about, I know there's concern if there's rain and how we will handle that. So I don't know if you wanted to add something first, Delbert, and then we can go into that topic.
I'm just gonna add that the tool we developed, this is just me tooting my horn a little. I was testing it for monthly counting and it was coming within 1 acre foot at a tens of thousands acre foot rich in the Gulf in terms of predicting a loss in it for doing a loss analysis. So that's good. We have a tool in place to do that analysis that Lizello's talking about. I just want to toot my horn a little bit.
Hey, Delbert, real quick, you have a question from Hector Garza.
Hey guys, so this is actually Dante Galeazzi with Texas International Produce Association. My IT guy is Hector Garza. Apologies on that. But first off, I want to commend the IBWC for what they did in securing this Rio San Juan water, working alongside the Texas entities. It's huge, and especially the opportunity that we see with this future water delivery and what it can mean to the region. I do want to ask, we continue to hear about the methodology that our friends to the south are going to use to get that water from the Cochillo and the Marty Gomez into the Rio Grande. This basically idea of pushing water from upstream to flood over the Marty Gomez and that spill water being into the Rio Grande. I feel like in 2024, there's got to be a solution that involves mechanical means, pumping and tubes and such rather than forward flooding. Has Conagua or Sila or anyone else in Mexico expressed the ability they have to perhaps deploy mechanical means rather than this flooding mechanism? It seems like there's a far more sophisticated means to handle this.
Right, and we're leaving those decisions domestically to Mexico. They're dealing with their operational issues and how they're going to get the water to us. We had a lot of back and forth on the 7-day. I know that's a big concern, but these were the limits and the constraints put us to Mexico, and there was not movement on that. So it's limitations of their system and how they have to operate and what they have to go through, right? But we leave those discussions to them domestically and what they can do. And they did a lot of negotiations on the Mexican section on getting this water and this delivery. What I can say is I know we heard about the concern about the 7-day, right? So we put the 7-day travel time. And if it rains, what happens? So we were able to negotiate some guardrails in these operational guidelines. Mexico would attempt to take up to 15 CMS if for some reason it rained, and it would have to be some extraordinary condition, and one would be considered rain. They would attempt to take up to 15 CMS within their system and use that water. And if they could not do that, the water actually spills, they would be taking up to a 15 CMS loss. But this would be up to 6 days, right? Because the orders have to be done 7 days in advance. This would give TCEQ with their users that opportunity to change their order in order because of the rain. But that's one of the guardrails we did put in there because we know that there's concern on that. We cannot dictate to Mexico how they operate their dams, what they do, how they get to the water to us. But these are some of the mechanisms we put in place in order to.
Yeah, you froze.
And let me
Sorry, froze at the end
let me add
there.
something to.
Let
me add just something to. Can you hear? Let me just add something to Dante's concern. Is that a couple of things? Is that one is for them to push the water through, but there are going to be times when the water is actually not going to be pushed through. It's actually going to go through the outlet works and go through their irrigation canals, with the exception of certain periods of time when they have to use those irrigation canals, which they've given us that information. So that will be going through mechanical means. But I think this also gives us an opportunity in the projects work group to analyze how has this been operating, and if there's a need to put in a more streamlined approach for delivery where we can negotiate with the Mexican section and Conagua investment in that type of infrastructure so that there's a more efficient delivery moving forward. So again, the way we're doing it now is not the only way it will be done moving forward if infrastructure can be identified.
Right. And one of our team members, Adrian Cortez, already kind of identified a possible other mechanism using some of their canals and how to get that quicker to the San Juan River, to the Rio Grande. So these are the conversations that we can have in that projects work group. And I think having the benefit of this minute and being able to have those discussions is truly going to be beneficial for us.
I just want to add
And then to
Oh, go ahead,
one
Commissioner.
last thing. With the projects work group, we have been in talks with TCQ about including some of the irrigation districts and or cities within this work group precisely to give it a level of transparency as to how we're developing it. And Mexico also wants to include some of their irrigation districts in this projects work group as well. We haven't developed the path forward yet on standing it up. We're starting to flush that out internally, and then we will be talking to TCQ in Mexico. We'll be talking to Conagua, and hopefully we can get that out to the public within a few months. Does that answer your question, Dante?
Yes, it does. You nailed it. You guys nailed it. The 7-day concern is absolutely a big one. Rain being one of the big issues, but also just, talking about efficiency and trying to speed this process up, right? Because they've got to bring that water down from Cochillo into the Marty Gomez as it starts to get hot. I'm sure they're going to express some sort of evaporational concerns. So it just seemed like there had to be a more efficient measure. But if we're leaving it on the Mexican side to decide the process, then I can see where our constraints are in this issue. So I just want to thank you guys for all your work and everything you've done in getting us to Rio San Juan water. And again, I realize it may not entirely belong in this conversation, but on behalf of South Texas Agriculture, we are very much looking forward to hearing more about additional deliveries from the Marty Gomez and Tamaulipas and the Cochillo, et cetera, for more water, because it is vital to the continuation of any kind of agriculture here in South Texas. So thank you all.
And just let me add this. So they'll be add something else to this is that, Mexico understands that they are very far behind and that they have to move forward on a process to identify additional sources of water to reduce as much as possible the volume that they're in arrears. And obviously applying the tools such as reservoir transfers is still on the table. But right now we've got to take it one step at a time. There is a domestic, there are domestic challenges that are going on with the water deliveries that we're getting right now. And so it's going to be a step-by-step process to move this forward. And they are working in parallel to socialize it. I also want to add another thing, and maybe this could be something that I've got to put together more information on, is that I've been very encouraged, and this is one of the things when I talk to the members of Congress, and I also had the opportunity to brief a group of members of Congress on the House Appropriations Subcommittee, one of these subcommittees. But I had the opportunity to brief them on what is happening on the Rio Grande. And one of the things I emphasized in all of my meetings yesterday was that the new president, Sheinbaum, she is really engaged on this issue. She's only been in office less than 90 days. We got the minutes signed, we got water allocated, but in her 100 points that she talked about in her inauguration, water and over appropriation of water was one of her top items within it. The other thing is that they just sent me El Plan Hídrico for 2040. I'll be more than happy to share it with the group. It is all in Spanish. I'm sure a lot of you can go through it. But one of the topics in there is appropriations, over appropriation of water rights. And what they're envisioning doing is investment in their agricultural districts under the condition of giving up water rights related to water savings. This is the first time they've done this. As we know, the minute whose name shall not be said, minute 309, the problem that happened there was that the investment went in, and as soon as they finished, the deliveries to the United States, they grew. they grew their water consumption because of all these water savings. And that is a problem. That's the problem we're living with right now. And so I'm really encouraged about this. I will I just got the plan here, and I will make sure that Frank distributes it to the group. Frank Fisher, our public affairs officer, for any of those that want to see it. So the idea is to provide more information on that. Two of the districts that are being studied right now to invest is precisely District 26, I believe, in Tamaulipas. I believe it's 26, and also Chihuahua, Distrito 005, up in Delicias. So this is a really very encouraging news. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to add real quick what the Ikanava mentioned about safeguards and operational guidelines. We didn't just negotiate them. They're not hypothetical. We actually put it into place for yesterday's San Luis Daily County. There was a spill and Mexico absorbed it all. So US did not lose any water in that. So they negotiated in good faith and they're carrying out the promise.
I have a follow-up for Keith Stella or Delbert. I know you handle as well. Just out of curiosity, when you talked about them cushioning up a certain amount of, say, a rain event or something were to come in, I guess who makes that determination as far as like if you have a different area, say just one of the counties, Cameron County or Hidalgo County, kind of get like a pocket of rain, who's going to define that event to be eligible in this agreement to say, yeah, we'll cushion that. Is it IWC? Is it the user themselves? Is it Mexico?
It's part of why we're having these daily meetings to discuss it. It's hard to put exact definitions on it.
Right.
The idea of calling it extraordinary was to safeguard. There's a responsibility on both parts, right? Mexico needs to give us water. We need to use the responsibility because they're expecting credit for that water. We can't just waste it till we go because we mismanage. So that's in there to protect them as well as to protect us, that 15 CMS adjustment. Now, what's good about that adjustment is we can do it with minimum 24 hours notice. So even on that water, maybe we ordered 15 and it's coming down and rain hit. We can say, okay, we'd like to adjust something. Mexico will take it. But it is up to negotiation as far as, they don't want us to abuse it, do it every single day, right? So that's what those daily meetings are. That answer your question?
Yeah, no, it helps. I just was curious who holds the power as far as, yeah, it's not going to count or we need it to count. So that's helpful.
I can say what we've seen so far, especially them taking the skills yesterday, that they really are interested in working and carrying through their promise, and they made the water available for us, like they said they would. So,
and I too
And
want
just to kind of add that add to what you Anthony, to your is that your comment? I believe that was you, Anthony. Was that the idea is TCQ is part of these discussions as well, and so if you get those pockets of rain, TCQ would be alerting to us the amendment of the order, and so that would be kind of the trigger. And correct me if I'm wrong, Delbert or Isela, that would be the trigger to understand these pockets of rain that are going on in the region.
the order form?
Right.
Yes.
And it was acknowledged that, TCQ does a really good job of looking at the forecast and making adjustments based on that. But in our daily operations calls that we're having, these are the discussions that we can have, right? If there needs to be a change in an order because there was rain in a certain area, this is where these discussions will be held. And like we noted, I think Delbert noted at the beginning, these operational guidelines, we started them, but we know they're a living document. If circumstances change or we see something's not working, we have the opportunity to amend that and work through those.
As far as river operations go, Mexico's also committed to providing their projections really regularly, and they submitted some today. So we've seen increased activity. That used to be a lot of messy stuff. I knew you'd like to hear that. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of urgency, transparency in the
other question. I'm glad we saved the time for Dylan.
Thanks for not throwing anything at me here. I appreciate it. No, thank you. If there's any other questions, I'll be here. Okay.
I see some applause there. Yes, yes, yes. So a couple of things. So I'm hoping they did a distribution of all of the fact sheet on Amistad. It's a relatively new, updated fact sheet, and there's a lot of information there. It talks about the sinkholes and the fact that on the front lower left, it talks about what the issues are, and the issues are, obviously you guys are all very experts on the sinkholes, as well as the DSAC rating. Of DSAC number 2 as potentially unsafe. And so if you flip it over on the back side where it says ongoing activities and moving forward, this is what I went through with members of Congress, as well as the reps, all of the border reps, as well as the senators, Cornyn and Cruz, was that the issues with Amistad right now is that we are in design. Was not an issue. What's ongoing on is we are in design right now. The range of costs that you see on the lower right is between 80 million and 276 million. So why is it such a broad range? Because we don't know how deep the wall that needs to go down the middle of the dam needs to be, how deep it needs to go to the bedrock, the cutoff wall. And so we are envisioning right now, the IBWC, we have about $30 million, as well as the Mexican section right now has about an equal amount. And we have enough money to start to do the design, as well as to start the first phase, which is the grout curtains. The grout curtains are going to be what's going to shore up on the sides of the dam. And we can always do just a presentation just on what the Amistad is. But one of the things I wanted to highlight to you in the fact sheet is that the United States, Mexico, the portion that needs to be shored up with the grout curtain and the cutoff wall is on the Mexican side. And so that's why Mexico is leading the effort on the design and construction. We do have the Corps of Engineers as our technical experts that are reviewing all of the information, as well, the design, as well as we'll be reviewing the management of the construction. They were, as well as ourselves, on the team to select the firm to do the design, and the Corps of Engineers, as well as ourselves, will be on the team to select the construction firm. You know, these are international firms that are likely to get this contract. But what you see on the lower right is that we are envisioning that the funding for this project will be in FY 26 and 27. Right now, Congress is looking at the budget for FY 25. So what we want to try to highlight to them is that the budget needs for Amistad will be in FY 26. We will know better cost information come March, I believe is what it says in there, of next year. So we will be updating you as you request on how the design is progressing, as well as the technology and what we're seeing. But I think next spring will be a good time for that. Are there any questions on Amistad Dam?
Commissioner, I had a question. It's on a separate note, not related to what's on the fact sheet, but is there any subsequent update to the penstocks, US penstocks?
Oh, God. That you probably didn't want to get that sound from me. Oh, God. Right. that came from the heart, didn't it? Because I'm so frustrated. But I'll let Isela start the discussion on that.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the solicitation we did put out for that irrigation gate valve for penstock 5 was not successful. We were not able to award it.
And what do you mean by not successful?
Right. The individuals that, well, I think only got 2 proposals, and this is run by the engineering department. But there was an issue with cost and qualifications. So we are going to resolicit. Our engineering department, our construction folks are reworking that and working to get that out as soon as possible. And then we're going to kind of, they're reworking the scope in order to make sure that we can be more successful at a cost that we can afford and move forward. But they are looking to resolicit. I think the last update I got, if it doesn't go out by the end of December, we're looking at the first part of 2025. And of course, as this goes out, we will keep you updated.
And just let me add something to, because the cost came in at tens of millions of dollars because we did it as a design build. And obviously this is not a tens of millions of dollars type of project. So the scope must have not have sufficient development. And so the way we're procuring it out now is as first just the design. And then based on the design, then we will pursue the construction to be able to have a less of a risk factor in the cost.
Thank you.
Is that helpful?
It's an update.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, let me. I just it's interesting because I know I wear my heart on my sleeve, but when we had a discussion internally, should it be a design build? We said, this is how we've done these before. They have been successful in the past. We were sure that we were going to be successful, and it just was not. So in trying to save time, now we're going to go back and do just design. Let's get a good cost and then get the good specs, and then we're going to have to do the construction separate, unfortunately.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner.
We even tried to see if the Corps of Engineers could do it for us. I called the highest levels, and no, they told me they were going to have to contract it out as well. So yes, not our finest moment, I must say.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you very much. I guess moving on, we can go to if there was any public comment.
I just wanted to add a quick, just because I feel bad that I was up there and I've neglected to mention Jeremy Wall's name as well, who's in here. He's been involved in a lot of that Rio San Juan stuff. I just want to make sure credit goes where it needs to. Thank you for being part of the team. Okay, that was it. Sorry.
Right. And one more comment. Can I make one more comment, Delbert, on that? As we were negotiating the operational guidelines with Mexico, we were also meeting with TCEQ, and we had several meetings, and I mean, my staff worked tirelessly on this, and we gave up leave, and it was a very ardent effort. But I also want to recognize TCEQ. They, there were a lot of concerns with the restrictions on the 7-day, and they were able to take the users' concerns and voice them to us in order for us to put these kind of guardrails and additional guidelines into this with Mexico.
They didn't throw any tomatoes.
Yeah, they did not.
That was it.
So, so I just want to recognize TCQ on the fact that they did bring up these concerns that I believe they heard from the users. But that's why we were able to get the 15 CMS, for Mexico to take the responsibility for if there's any spills at that. So I just wanted to recognize that and all the work that was done by not just by the U.S. delegation, but also by Mexico. So
we do appreciate
one of the things that came up. Yes, no, for sure. One of the things that came up during that process was the discussion on our gauging stations, and that may be something you may be interested. I'm glad Jeremy is there. We, as many of you know, we launched an asset management office 2 years ago, and part of it was to contract a consultant to come in and look at inventory all of the components that we have of all of our infrastructure so that we can go from a reactive to a proactive approach on all of our infrastructure. We also contracted the capital plan, and that may be something you may be interested in us presenting at our next Citizens Forum meeting, because in the first phase of this of our asset management plan is our gauging stations, and how do we maintain them so that they measure correctly and responding to debris, all of those things. But that could be something of interest. We also can talk to you about the phasing of when the dams are going to be inventoried. So again, we move from this reactive approach to our managing our infrastructure to a proactive approach. And what will be really useful from that asset management office is that now we will have a true budget that reflects a good maintenance of our infrastructure combined with a capital plan. The capital plan is envisioned to be done by next fall. And it's a 20-year capital plan.
I was just gonna add or slash close with, we do want to appreciate y'all's information and transparency. Some of the information y'all presented to us regarding the, I guess the procedures is the first time I would say that our region has heard it. So we do appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Is there any public comment? No. Yes.
Yeah, Barry Goldsmith, National Weather Service, Brownsville, Rio Grande Valley. It's been a great discussion to learn all about the ins and outs. Credit to everyone who made this minute happen. Really important. But I did want to end with a pessimistic note, but just a note of caution that if it weren't for Tropical Storm Alberto and another wave of energy that came behind it, the Rio San Juan reservoirs would have been at 33 and 35% or lower for a good part of the summer. So I noticed some verbiage about conservation and other efforts that will be used to help improve the water supply and not losing water coming down. But I'm hoping that the state and Mexico as well are looking at this, because the future forecast for the Southwest US, including the reservoir regions, all of them, is not pretty, going into 2050, 2060 time. So we need to have continued discussion like we had in August on, desalination, reclamation, conservation, new innovations for irrigation, right? All of that needs to continue that discussion heavily, because as is mentioned at that workshop and other times, we can't be relying on the Hurricane Alex's of the world, or the good fortune of Tropical Storm Alberto, which was the case this year. Because before June 16th to 18th and beyond, right, we were low everywhere. Not only were our reservoirs, if we look at record lows, but the reservoirs down there were quite low too, and there was no water to dip. So it's great that the San Juan is available. We love it, and that may happen again. Remember, it was also some good fortune in the nature of that particular cyclone going over that.
I would highly encourage that all of this unity that has been built through this process be leveraged in the next legislative cycle, given the fact that it's going to be starting in September. I know you have a new state senator there. I have briefed Senator Perry myself on multiple times as to what is happening in South Texas. And he's a no-nonsense type of person, and he really wants to focus on water for coming in the next legislative session. So if all of you guys are able to unify and have a unified voice as to what your narratives are going to be, please share with me, because I will continue to advocate for the region in all of the venues that I'm at.
Any others? Is there anyone might have their hand up or online?
Nobody online.
Okay. We move right along. Time to, I guess, suggested future agenda items in the board. Any ideas you'd like to throw out there for talk about next time?
I like the commissioners, gating system projects. I think we need to get that.
Yeah, I like that as well.
Another one I put down, Anthony, is because of the presentation that you did on the restoration. Is there any other canal, IBWC canal restoration projects going on that would be interesting to the region? It may just be that one, or is there any kind of, embankment restoration somewhere along the IBWC that people could present saying, look, we're also doing this to ensure that the banks don't, they keep the water flowing.
Yes.
So one of the big projects that's coming up this year is going to be the Brownsville levee repair. There in downtown's Brownsville, and so that's one of our projects. And maybe what we can do is I know Dr. Uni did it at one point. But again, there is an opportunity to remind the group as far as what are the levee repairs and what are their schedules moving forward for the region. That could be something that you may find useful.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any others? I thought it might be a good idea, because I'm not sure the next time we plan to meet, it might be, I know Delbert, he should come back here, if we don't scare you away, is possibly a future, what Amisat's future looks like with the penstock information, and going into the next year with the probably historic loads starting in the new water year, January, just for our region to hopefully continue the conversation. Yeah, so
Yes, we can provide an update. We can have our construction folks update on the penstock project, or one of us just get that information from them, and then we can provide the updated projections at that point. You know, based on we don't sometimes get the demand information, but based on historical demand information, we can do that.
It's not because you scared me off. There are better people to talk about.
Yeah.
I like coming here because I bring my camera. You guys have lots of cool birds.
Why we need a water bill.
That's right. That's right.
you'll volunteer later.
I think he's on the line.
Yeah. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps us up, I think, for now. 4:34, we can call the meeting to an end. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.